I'm Daniel Reeves. I'm 79 years old, and I didn't lose my body because of illness. I lost control of it because of a thought. Your mind creates thousands of thoughts every day. Most of them don't matter. They come and they go. You don't remember them. They don't stay long enough to change anything. But sometimes one doesn't leave. One thought stays, and if you give it attention, it begins to repeat. And when something repeats long enough, your body starts to believe it's real. That's where it begins. Not with damage, not with pain, just attention. I was 44 when it started. There was nothing wrong with my health. I wasn't weak. I wasn't sick. My body worked the way it should. I woke up on time. I went to work. I walked, ate, slept, like anyone else. Normal. That's what makes this hard to understand, because when it started, there was no reason for it. I was sitting alone one evening. No noise, no distraction, just quiet. And then the thought appeared. What if something is wrong with my body? It didn't feel serious. It didn't feel dangerous. Just a passing question. The kind your brain throws out randomly. I could have ignored it. Most people do. But I didn't. I noticed it. And that was enough. Because the moment you notice a thought, you separate it from all the others. You give it importance. I repeated it. What if something is wrong with my body? I looked at my hands. They looked normal. I moved them. Nothing felt off. But the thought didn't leave. It stayed. And when a thought stays, your brain starts scanning for proof. That's automatic. You don't choose it. It just happens. I stood up, walked around, checked how I felt. Everything seemed fine, but now I was paying attention in a way I never had before. And attention changes everything. I sat back down. The thought came again, stronger this time. What if you're missing something? Now it wasn't just a question. It had a tone, a suggestion. And I listened. That's where the loop started. Not in my body, in my mind. The next morning, I woke up and checked myself again, before even getting out of bed. That had never happened before. I moved my arms, my legs, checked my breathing. Everything was normal, but it didn't feel normal anymore. Because now I was watching it, closely, constantly. And when you watch your body too closely, you stop trusting it. Small sensations started to stand out. A slight tightness in my chest, a minor headache, a small change in breathing. Things that had always been there, but I had never noticed. Now they felt important, because the thought was still there. What if something is wrong? And repetition does something dangerous. It turns possibility into probability. I started checking more often, not just in the morning, throughout the day, at work, at home. Even in the middle of conversations, I would pause and scan my body, looking for something I couldn't define. And that's the trap. When you don't know what you're looking for, everything looks suspicious. My body hadn't changed, but my awareness had. And awareness, without control, becomes anxiety. Days passed. The thought didn't go away, it multiplied. What if this is serious? What if you're ignoring something important? What if it's too late by the time you find out? Each one felt logical, responsible even, like I was taking care of myself. But I wasn't. I was feeding the loop, because every time I checked, I confirmed something. Not that I was sick, but that the thought mattered, and that's all the brain needs. Relevance. Once a thought becomes relevant, it becomes dominant. I stopped trusting normal sensations. A normal heartbeat felt fast. Normal breathing felt shallow. Normal tiredness felt like a warning. Nothing had actually changed, but everything felt different. That's when fear entered, not suddenly, gradually, built on repetition, built on attention, built on a belief I had never tested, and fear doesn't stay in the mind, it moves into the body. My sleep changed, not completely, just enough. I would wake up in the middle of the night, check my breathing, check my chest, sit up, just to make sure everything was still working. That's when I realized something was different, not in my body, in my behavior. But even then, I didn't stop, because by that point, it didn't feel like a choice anymore. It felt necessary, like ignoring it would be irresponsible. That's how deep the loop had gone. The thought had become a belief, and the belief had started controlling my actions. Without asking, without permission, I started avoiding certain things: physical effort, long walks, anything that made my heart beat faster. Not because I couldn't do them, but because I didn't trust what I would feel. And the less I used my body, the weaker it started to feel. Not from illness, from disuse, from fear. That's the part people don't understand. The body follows the mind. If the mind signals danger long enough, the body starts responding as if it's real. My posture changed. My energy dropped. My breathing became shallow. Not because something was wrong, but because I was constantly monitoring it, interrupting it, controlling something that was supposed to be automatic. And when you interfere with automatic systems, you break their rhythm. Weeks turned into months, and I was no longer living normally. I was managing, monitoring, controlling, watching. Every sensation felt like a message. Every change felt like a warning. And the original thought, the small one, the harmless one, was now everywhere, not as a question, as a constant presence. What if something is wrong? I didn't realize it then, but by that point, it wasn't just a thought anymore. It had taken control of my body. At some point, it stopped feeling like I was thinking. It felt like I was responding, reacting to something that never fully showed itself. That's when the shift becomes complete, when a thought is no longer something you hear, but something you obey. By then, my day didn't start normally anymore. It started with a check. Before I even got out of bed, I would scan my body, breathing, heartbeat, tension. I didn't ask if I felt okay. I searched for what might be wrong, and that changes everything. Because when you search for a problem, your mind will find something, even if it has to create it. A slight pressure in the chest, a faint dizziness, a moment of imbalance. Things that used to pass unnoticed now became signals, warnings, proof, and once your brain labels something as a threat, your body responds immediately. My heart would start beating faster, not because something was wrong, but because I believed something might be. That's how the loop tightens. Thought creates attention. Attention creates sensation. Sensation confirms the thought, and the cycle repeats, stronger each time. I tried to ignore it for a while, told myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking. But ignoring doesn't break the loop, because the thought doesn't disappear. It waits, and then comes back, louder, more convincing. What if this time it's real? That's the line that keeps you trapped, because now you can't risk ignoring it. Now it feels dangerous to stop checking. So you continue, again and again, and every time you check, you reinforce it. You tell your brain, this matters. This is important. Keep watching. And the brain listens. It always does. I stopped trusting my body completely. Something I had never thought about before became uncertain, unreliable, like it could fail at any moment, even though it never had. I remember walking one afternoon, just a short distance, something I had done thousands of times. But halfway through, I became aware of my breathing. Too aware. I tried to control it. Deep breaths, slow breaths, But the more I controlled it, the more unnatural it felt. That's when panic started building. Not full panic, just pressure. A rising discomfort that didn't make sense. My chest tightened. My thoughts sped up. And suddenly, I wasn't walking anymore. I was managing a situation that didn't exist until I created it. I had to stop, stand still, wait for it to pass, and when it did, it didn't feel like relief. It felt like confirmation. Something is wrong. That's how deep it had gone. Even when nothing happened, it felt like something had almost happened, and that almost was enough to keep the loop alive. After that, things got worse, not suddenly, but steadily. I started avoiding going out alone, avoiding effort, avoiding anything that made me feel anything noticeable in my body, because every sensation became suspicious, even normal ones. And the less I exposed myself to normal activity, the more sensitive I became. That's another trap. When you reduce activity, your tolerance drops. And when your tolerance drops, everything feels more intense. So the next time I felt my heart beat faster, it felt overwhelming. Not because it was abnormal, but because I had stopped experiencing it regularly. My world became smaller, not physically, mentally. I started planning my days around control, where I could sit, where I could rest, how I could avoid triggering that feeling again. And the strange part is, I still believed I was protecting myself, that I was being careful, responsible, but I wasn't protecting anything. I was reinforcing the fear, strengthening it. Every avoided action, every canceled plan, every moment of withdrawal was teaching my brain the same thing. You're not safe. And the body listens to that. It always listens. Sleep became difficult, not because I couldn't sleep, but because I didn't trust what would happen if I did. I would lie there, aware of my heartbeat, aware of my breathing, monitoring something that should have been automatic. And the more aware I became, the harder it was to let go, because letting go meant not checking, and not checking felt dangerous. That's when exhaustion started, not physical, mental. Constant monitoring, constant thinking, constant reacting. It drains you, slowly, until even simple things feel heavy. I wasn't living normally anymore. I was existing inside a loop, a closed system. Thought, check, sensation, fear, repeat, over and over again. And the worst part, I couldn't explain it properly, not even to myself, because from the outside, nothing was clearly wrong. But inside, everything felt unstable, uncertain, like I was always one step away from something going wrong, even though it never actually did. That's the reality of it. The body wasn't failing, the system wasn't broken, but the signal was wrong, and I kept responding to it as if it were real. That's how a single thought ends up controlling everything, not by force, by repetition, by attention, by slow conditioning, until your body starts reacting before you even have time to think. And by that point, you're not in control anymore. You're just responding to something your own mind created. There was a point when it stopped feeling like fear. Fear comes and goes. This didn't. This stayed. Constant, quiet, but always there, like something running in the background that never shuts off. By then, I wasn't asking if something was wrong anymore. I had already decided it was. That's what changed everything. When a thought turns into a conclusion, your brain stops questioning. It starts defending. Every sensation became proof. Every calm moment became temporary. I would sit still, feel normal for a few minutes, and instead of relaxing, I would think, this won't last. And that thought alone was enough to bring the feeling back. That's when I understood something, but not fully. The body doesn't just react to reality, it reacts to expectation. If you expect something to go wrong, your body prepares for it, even if nothing is happening. My breathing never felt natural anymore. It felt manual, like I had to control it. And the more I tried to control it, the more unnatural it became. That's when I started feeling something I can't describe easily. Not pain, not illness, just instability. Like I couldn't trust my own system to run without me watching it. And that's exhausting, because your body is not meant to be managed consciously. It's meant to run on its own. Heart, breathing, balance, all automatic. But I had stepped in, and I couldn't step out. That's the trap. Once you interfere, you feel responsible. And responsibility turns into control. And control turns into tension. Constant tension, even when nothing is happening. I stopped recognizing what normal felt like, because I hadn't experienced it without interruption for so long. Everything was filtered, everything was monitored, even sitting still required effort, because my attention was always scanning, always checking, always waiting for something to go wrong. And when you wait long enough, your body gives you something, not because it's failing, but because you're pushing it out of rhythm. I started feeling lightheaded sometimes, not severe, just enough to notice. And that was enough, because now I had something real, something I could point to. This is it. This is what I was feeling. But it wasn't the cause. It was the result. A body under constant stress starts reacting, not with disease, with imbalance. And I took that imbalance as confirmation of the original thought. That's how the loop closes. The thought creates the reaction. The reaction proves the thought. And once that happens, it becomes self-sustaining. You don't need new thoughts anymore. The system runs on its own. I stopped going out completely at one point, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't trust what might happen if I did. Even simple things felt uncertain. Walking, standing too long, being away from a place where I felt safe. And that word, safe, it changed meaning for me. Safe didn't mean healthy. Safe meant controlled. A place where I could sit, check myself, manage the sensations. That's not safety. That's limitation. But I didn't see it that way. I thought I was protecting myself, doing what I needed to do, until one day, something shifted. Not in my body, in my awareness. I was sitting alone again, same place, same silence, and I noticed something strange. I wasn't reacting to anything in that moment. No strong sensation, no clear discomfort, but I was still tense, still alert, still waiting. That's when it hit me. The reaction was no longer connected to anything real. It had become automatic. My body was responding, without needing a trigger. That's when you know. The system has learned the pattern, and once the body learns something, it repeats it, without asking, without checking. That's when I saw it clearly for the first time, not as a feeling, as a process. It wasn't my body failing, it was my mind training my body to respond to a false signal over and over again until it became normal. And that realization didn't fix anything. That's important. Understanding doesn't immediately undo conditioning, because the pattern is already built, deep, repeated, automatic. I tried to stop checking. Just once, I sat there and decided I wouldn't scan my body, wouldn't monitor anything. Just sit, let it be. For a few seconds, it worked. Nothing happened. Everything felt quiet. And then the thought came back, stronger than before. What if you're ignoring something serious? And just like that, the urge returned, the tension returned, the need to check came back even stronger. That's when I realized how deep it had gone. This wasn't just thinking anymore. This was conditioning. My brain had learned a pattern, and it wasn't going to let go easily. That's the truth people don't like hearing. You don't lose control all at once. You give it away, slowly, by repeating something without questioning it, until your body learns it. And once the body learns it, it becomes your default, your normal, even if it started with something that wasn't real. And by then, you're not just dealing with a thought anymore. You're dealing with a system. You built yourself without realizing it.